Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, everybody else was busy or taking the kids trick or treating. And to be honest, I've been traveling a lot for work. And I don't know the last time we did a Tuesday show, but anyway, we're bringing it back. It's a thing, although I might not be able to do it next Tuesday. But anyway, should we kick this off, Mark? What you wearing?
Oh, I am still wearing my green Seamaster.
Yeah.
Which is definitely in the race for the most worn watch. Going to be one of the most worn watches this year. I love this thing.
I was I did another Chrono 24 run where I was stalking the quartz ones, but I found one that looked pretty good, but it looked like it had been over polished because I think they're all supposed to be sandblasted, aren't they? And this one looked shiny, so I think we might have polished it.
Let me see. Well, it depends how early it is. This is the previous generation, and it's still quite shiny.
Oh yeah, this was the quartz. This was the Bond one, the Brosnan era.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
From the 90s. Yeah, those are really, really hard to find in good condition, apparently. Yeah. And in fact, even this previous generation, people bought them and wore them. So finding a good one, particularly a 38 mil, is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
And if you do find a good one, they're horribly expensive.
Yeah, I still need to get one in the collection at some point, but let's
just don't complain about the helium escape valve. It's part of the character. Leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, I've got my Christopher Ward's the first watch that I'm not wearing. I'm wearing another watch, but this Christopher Ward I think is the first watch I've had with a helium escape valve on it.
Yeah, that's
even though theirs is integrated.
Yeah, one of the subtle automatic ones.
Yeah, it's good because you can rest the watch down on the side with it, and you're not worried about scratching the side if you put it down on a hard surface.
Oh, but some of them, people were saying that the paint rubbed off the H and the E. So what you were doing, how you abuse it to rub the paint off, because it's kind of countersunk.
It is sunk in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Before I go, before I do my wristwatch check, so Bill, thank you for joining us. Kevin, thank you. Thanks for the email. Happy Halloween to you as well. Enthusiast Watch Reviews. Hey, welcome to the channel. I don't think I've noticed you in the chat before. So hello. Junior Johnson, thank you. Thomas Burnett. Thomas, I mean, we're talking about Windup and Watch Time, but if you want to join, let us know. And then Nathan. Hi, Nathan. I'll do my wristwatch check. I'm wearing I don't know if I've shown this yet. I think it turned up just as the day before I was going to wind up on Watch Time. It's the Magnum PI Momentum watch that's been on pre-order. So the story is that it's a sea quartz, and the family that owned Chronosport, I think they were called, made a sea quartz like this, and it was worn in Tom Selleck wore it in the first season of Magnum PI. So what they did is this Momentum, the same family setting it up. This Momentum watch has reissued this. They reissued it and sold out the first lot straight away. And then there was a pre-order. So I got it on pre-order. I had to wait probably 4 or 5 months. They sold out again, so they're on pre-order again. Also, a version of this, a PVD one that was an Ani-Digi version, was in Rambo First Blood. Is watching that, so there you go. So I'm going to do a review of it. It's about $300 for a quartz watch. The bezel is a bit eek, but I'm going to do a proper review on it. Oh yeah, thank you.
Compliments will get you everywhere, AJ.
yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to talk about probably the reason it's just Mark and I, because I don't know if anybody else. Well, Watch Chris was there, but Watch Chris is out trick or treating. We went to both Windup in New York and the Watch Time event as well. We're going to give our reaction to it. But if you've got any questions, if anybody went and said hi to me, hello, and thank you for that. But if anybody's got any questions about what we thought, or there's any particular brands that we don't mention that were there, but you want our opinion on them, please fire away in the comments section, because there's only 2 of us, so we need your help to support it. Actually, Nathan's saying he's wearing sea quartz. Okay, so let's start with let's start with the kind of the layout of it, Mark. Then, so there's Watch Time and Wind Up. Watch Time do an event on the Friday night, but Watch Time isn't open on the Friday, is it? It's Wind Up. Is Wind Up is a 3 day.
They call the Watch Time Friday night event is by ticket, and it was, if you get a ticket for the Friday night, it also lets you have entry on the Saturday and Sunday. But that's actually quite expensive. It's about it was $180 something this year for the Friday night. It actually feels quite busy when you're at that event. But it is a chance to see all the brands and some of the more famous. If you're going to meet celebrities, they may well be there on the Friday night. Most of the time, I wouldn't recognize a celebrity if they bit me on the ankle, so I'm entirely the wrong person to go celebrity spotting.
Well, Kevin O'Leary, was Kevin O'Leary there? Because Kevin O'Leary is there on the Saturday and I saw him, but was he there on the Friday night?
I couldn't stay for that long, unfortunately. But it's, they are very, very different, very, very different events. For the most part, Wind Up is the sort of $300 to $4,000 range, and Watch Time is $4,000 and up. And you kind of know you're in the wrong place when the first price you hear is, oh, this is $210,000. And then the second price is $500,000. And you go, I don't really belong in this show. You are, this is so far out of my league. So, but it is a great chance to see a lot of the independents and the high-end brands that can be quite difficult to see under normal circumstances. Armin Strom, it's the only time you can easily go and see an Armin Strom, and that's definitely definitely a good reason to go. And the guys from Armin Strom are always fun.
Yeah. So I didn't go to that event. I had my wife with me, so we were there on the Friday night. We arrived on Thursday, but we just went to Wind Up on the Friday. So we queued to go in. So we queued to go in like first Friday night. We went in, and then I think, which was good. And then I think the Friday, was it Friday night? Yeah, it was was the Christopher Ward event Friday night?
Yes.
Or was it? Yeah. So Mark and I got to go to what I thought was going to be a big Christopher Ward event, but it was a very intimate, nice little bar. It's like the upstairs of a bar. Felt very privileged to have been invited because there must have only been 40 people there at maximum at the peak. Do you think?
And 6 or 7 of those were the Christopher Ward team.
Yeah, and they were. It was a very intimate event, which was really cool because I got to first the way that Wind Up is set up is Wind Up is a selling event. So as a YouTuber, I don't know, I felt a bit weird about approaching brands that I knew. I said hi to people, but they were trying to sell their watches. So it was a pitching event to them. And obviously they knew they weren't going to sell to me. So they were trying to pitch, they're trying to pitch their watches. So you were having kind of casual conversations, but they always had their eye on like who was the next person that was coming. So I got that impression a lot with like Zodiac and a few others. And Mike France at Christopher Ward had actually said, "Oh, I'll speak to you later," which he did do. So that Christopher Ward event was a good chance to really speak to Nicholas at Fears. Spent a lot of time with him. Spent a lot of time with Mike France, Christopher Ward, Patrick at Christopher Ward as well. And Nathan asked about Studio Underdog. So Richard was there at Studio Underdog, and he was a really nice guy. In fact, Mark, you've got a picture of that's Nicholas from Fears, but you've actually got a picture of Richard. So there's Richard from Studio Underdog, who's a really nice guy.
Yep.
But the question is, Mark, did you get to play with the Field Watch?
I did actually. Yeah. The dials are incredible. It's a field watch. It has the elements of a field watch. I'm trying to remember the size, but I think it's sub 40 millimeters. They have that dual layer. One of them is the dual layer dial, and I didn't send the photograph to you, but they are very well crafted. They, and the glow in the dark dials are just incredible. You look at the color on the dial, and then when they light up, you think, how the heck did you do that? And that's the sapphire dial, and there's some compromises with screws in the sapphire, which is a cause of failure, because those dials, you put a screw through a piece of ceramic, it's going to want to break. So they've had to learn a lot to make those dials work and make them a production reality. I'm not necessarily a fan of field watches, and I'm not necessarily a fan of watches that are less than 40 millimeters. But if those meet your criteria, they are very, very well, very, very worth looking at. Even the black dial with the loomed indices is so very, very well done. That's some of the best loom you'll see anywhere, particularly for loom dials.
Yep.
Not necessarily my thing, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll be a success. I like them for what they are. I'm just not sure I'd ever put one on my wrist, put it that way.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I like that they exist. Richard was a really nice guy,
Yep.
but I'm still not. Neither of them are really to my personal taste, but very well made from what I saw. I'll just drop the link very quickly for Thomas. Hop on. So we've got a couple more questions coming through. So thanks for everyone asking a question. Next up is anything new and exciting from Formex. You're best to answer this one.
Oh, I didn't see anything new from Formex, but that might just be my bad memory. I had the opportunity to look at the Essence Legera, and in fact, I ended up buying one. So I've been looking at the Essence Legera in the white dial, either in 43 or 41. It's taken me a couple of years to make up my mind, and I finally made up my mind and bought the 41. I think I've got it. If you can excuse Watchbox opening moments. Here.
Oh, we're doing an unboxing.
I've unboxed it and worn it. I just put it away to put the Seamaster on. So here's the Essence Legera 41. The light's not great for it, but it's the first time I wore it, I kept looking at my wrist and going, "Where's the watch? Where's the watch?" Because it's so light. Yeah. This is on the rubber strap with the carbon fiber deployment. And this is the first time I've ever had to read a watch manual to work out how to work the clasp.
Yeah, so this
because there's a knack to it.
Yeah, because what you can't see there is it.
You can't see
it's still got it's got micro adjustment. It's got a ratchet.
Yeah, and I haven't got it pins through the strap. So, but yes, there is a ratchet to it. So I'm reading the manual, and they take you through how to operate the clasp, and they give you step 1, and there's a nice number that says step 1. They say step 2, nice picture with step 2, step 3. Then they talk about number 4, and there's no number 4 anywhere. So I when I went on the Sunday, I went up to them and said, "I've never had to read a manual before. And by the way, do you know you've got something missing?" So they look at me as if I've got 2 heads at this point. We'll go, "Well, I did buy one yesterday and I did have to read the manual." So that they then find the manual and go, "Oh yeah, we clearly say, look at number 4, and there's no number 4.
Yeah. It was funny because Ricky and Dave over at Scottish Watches are big fans of Formex. I had never seen one in person, always been intrigued, but never intrigued enough to buy one to see what it was like. And I have to say, there was a couple of brands that I was really impressed with when I saw them in person, and Formex was one of them. Is it Raphael?
Raphael Granito, yes.
Yeah. he was there, and he took Watch Chris did me absolute proud at the Windup event. He took me around and introduced me to loads of brands that he works with. So a big shout out to Chris. We're very, very grateful for that. But yeah, the Formex team took me all through the Formex watches, and very impressed. I think I saw all of the models. I thought I might be a 39 guy at their 39 one, but actually their larger one I liked a lot more. And the one that you picked up, the one that you bought, the carbon fiber one, incredibly light, amazingly light. I saw the stone dial as well, which was, I think, one of the new ones. There's a stone gradient dial.
I think the case suspension system is a bit of a gimmick. And much as I hate to agree with Pete McConville, the case suspension system is a bit gimmicky because it only moves in the vertical plane.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lip on the bezel, which means it can't go into the case. So if you strike it from the top, that case suspension system may not help you as much as you think it will. It's nice that it's there. It's a nice marketing claim, but the quality of the carbon fiber case and the deployant clasp and the rubber strap is lovely too. So, yeah. I mean, and the green version, if you like green dial, the Essence Legera green dial is definitely worth a look.
Yeah, I thought I was going to like the green dial the most, but it was the blue dial that really struck me. And the blue dial I really liked a lot. Okay, so yeah, great question, Bill.
And I think it's the reef that has the swappable bezels. Those are, because that's a fascinating mechanism, because you go, surely they're just going to pop off, and they don't. There's definitely a lot of work gone in to make those bezels reliable.
Yeah, and that was an amazing story that he told me, and I don't know whether this is true or whether it's just part of the thing, but I believe him that apparently the reef, when they first released it, he said that they were pre-orders, and you picked the bezel and the dial color, and then they made the dial color. They made the bezel and dial color. Hang on, just let me add in Thomas. Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Hi, yeah, pleasure.
Hey. Yeah, so you apparently you picked the dial and you picked the bezel color, and he said that actually by the time the pre-orders were built, that many people had emailed him to say, "Oh, I changed my mind on the bezel, or I changed my mind on the dial." That was the impetus to make them removable, is what he said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but what was great is that the mechanism, the ratchet mechanism, or the spring is built into the bezel. It's not on the watch. So when you take the bezel off, it's like clean, and then when you turn the bezel over itself, you can't really see the mechanism. They've done a very good job of hiding the mechanism within the bezel, so it moves within the bezel, which is pretty good. So it's not like you're left with a spring, or you have to put a spring on and then the bezel. It's housed within it.
It's surprisingly easy to do. Again, once you've got the knack. And Formex seem to be doing very well. They seem to be growing, and hopefully they'll manage the growth. But the watches are great. Some of the design, I think maybe their next step would be employing a professional designer and trying to carve a slightly better niche for themselves design wise. But that's part of being more than 3 or 4 years old, because the watches and the quality of the assembly and the watches themselves is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Thomas, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. I was really interested to hear what you thought of the Studio Underdog Field Watch, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm not a field watch fan, so I'm so I can say that they are very, very well made. The dials and the glow-in dials are great, and if you like a glow-in dial, and you like that size, I don't think you can go wrong.
Because it's a second album, isn't it? Really, because they're really well known for the chronographs, and using the seagull movement on the chronographs was really good. And now they're using a Miyota on the field watch, I believe.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I thought that they should have maybe branched away. I know the pink lemonade is very like the watermelon chronograph, and I thought that they maybe should have branched away from that design identity that they've got.
Well,
And,
I mean, there are four different dials. There's the black,
Stephanie blue, and the black, and the green, the white dial. Yeah. And then just the pink lemonade, which is the.
Well, the thing is that if you've got a watermelon chronograph, you've now got the opportunity to pair it with the pink lemonade field watch.
True.
You know.
Yeah.
It's a successful colorway. So why would they drop a successful colorway?
Yeah.
I just thought it was nice to keep that to the chronographs rather, and maybe sort of do the field watch in a whole new sort of colorway, sort of get a whole new feel for the field watch. But I like the fact they've done sandwich dials and they've got a lot of lume, like you say.
Yeah, it actually looks like, I don't know if this is, I'm just checking whether this is on all of them, but it appears that they're Selita.
I thought they were Selita.
210 hand-wound movements. That's right. Sorry, not me.
Yeah.
That's 210 hand-wound movements. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy was asking about the Brunswick.
Yes. Yeah. I did see the green dial Brunswick. Did you, Mark?
I think it was Misael was paying more attention to the Fears watches than I was.
Yeah, I saw the green. The green is a boutique only, so you have to. I believe you have to go. I don't know if you technically have to, but I think you have to go to their Bristol store to buy it. I am a huge green watch fan. This is a dark metallic green that is got almost a kind of a, not really a purple hue, but it's a very dark green, I would say. I thought I would like it a lot, and I thought it was, I mean, the other dials are so good, it's hard to put it up. It does look good, but it's just a very dark green, I would say. It wouldn't be my first choice, I would say, the green dial, but I do. It's a very dark green. It's. I think you have to see it in person. The pearl dial that he had. I've also got a picture of my wife wearing the $30,000 platinum Fears. She absolutely loved it with the grey dial. The anthracite. She loved it. But the pearl dial was exceptional. I've never seen a pearl dial watch that looked quite like the Fears one. Did you see the pearl? He'd used a very rare sort of blue pearl that I'd not really seen before.
I'm not sure if it's blue or if it's dyed in some way.
Okay.
Like I said, sort of Fears are a little bit too retro, deliberately so.
Right.
And the other Scottish watches guy, Misael, was there and he was all over them. So, I'm always happy to chat to Nicholas, but he knows I'm not one of his customers. He's not aiming for me as a customer, and we can all agree that his watches are marvelous. They're just not for me. Yeah, and that's the nice thing about these shows is you get to see a lot of things, and a lot of them you can't like everything, and if you do like everything, might I suggest that's going to be a huge watch collection, 80 odd brands. So, but they are exquisitely executed, the Fears.
This is my wife wearing the Brunswick. This is the platinum one. It's covered in plastic. That's why it looks a bit weird, but it's platinum with diamond for every other.
I must admit the salmon dial Brunswick would be, if I was going to buy a Fears, the salmon dial Brunswick would probably be the one I would go for.
That's gorgeous, Mark. I'm a big fan of the Brunswick myself, to be honest with you. And the salmon dial is just spot on, really nice.
Yeah, really I will be and I was Nicholas was very kindly took my wife and I out for breakfast on the Saturday morning, I think, or the Sunday morning. It might it was the I can't remember now. I think it was the Saturday morning. Nicholas took us out for breakfast, so big shout out to Nicholas. And I was busting his chops over breakfast about he needs a watch with a date on it. And as soon as he has a watch with a date on it, I'm like a Fears customer. Like I'm honest. I will stand by that. I'm saying it live to the interwebs now.
Really?
Okay, so let's have a look.
James Duffy's got a good question.
Yeah, I'm just starring these. Was there a watch or brand you changed your mind about after the show? Yeah,
I guess we're lucky in that we get to see a lot of watches one way or another, and either something like Watch Time or Windup is an excuse to see things that you don't perhaps come across. So if I was to talk about Windup, the watches that I'd seen and I think I'd reviewed were Depencel. And then seeing them in person, you suddenly go, they make a lot of sense. So it was kind of a brand. Well, the motorsport marketing seems a bit hokey, but when you see them in person, they do make a lot of sense as watches. Depencel is from 3 French car manufacturers: Delage, Panhard, and Facel Vega. You could say, well, they look a bit like a Tag Monaco, but the case shape is subtly different. It resembles the radiator grille of a Facel Vega, and there are very, very few badly made watches anymore. Once you get out of the $60 AliExpress range. So there are very, very few badly made watches. Badly made watches haven't survived. But these are really rather nice as watches, and they were something, you read the press release or the reviews, but seeing them in person, this was a watch I'd kind of forgotten about, but certainly changed my mind.
Yeah, Thomas, have you heard of this brand? I've never heard of them.
Yeah, along with Serica and Yema and a few other French brands, and
I
saw
the Serica.
I'm interested in Serica, the new dive watch that they put out. Well, not so new now, but they brought out a dive watch quite a while back. But it looks a bit like the Tudor P01.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you? You saw them as well, Mark? Did you? The Serica. I didn't stop for ages with them, but I did see them.
No, I don't recall stopping at Serica. I mean, I was sort of looking at brands I hadn't heard of, someone like Bruno Sonley, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
But even with that show, the Friday is very busy. The Saturday you have the if you have press access, you can get in an hour early, and that way you can tell which brands were partying in Manhattan late on Friday night, because some brands were only just set up by the time the show opened at noon.
That's true. They delayed letting us in. Yeah, they delayed letting us in. It was opening at 12, I think, and they didn't open the door till 10 past 12. So there's definitely people struggling to get set up, which was a bit weird. But
yeah, I mean, I snuck in with Christopher Ward at 10:30 in the morning and helped them set up their stand. Well, made sure I didn't get in there way too much, probably more honest. But you could see that they were letting the brands in from 10, and there were some brands that kind of sort of crept in with hangovers at a quarter to noon. And then the doors open. The Friday is busy, the Saturday is busy. If you want to spend more time, definitely go on the Sunday. Sunday's the civilized day.
What were your opinions on the new C1 moon phase with the aventurine dial, Mark?
Well, I have a Christopher Ward moon phase. I have the C9 from 2015 that came out.
Right.
I like it. I don't know that I agree with everyone who says they should have taken the Swiss made off the dial. I think when you see the watch in person, it's not as obvious as it is in photographs. As designs go,
I've heard some people say that the dial is a bit too big for the case. The case isn't big enough. The sort of bezel isn't big enough around it.
It's in proportion. What makes the dial look bigger is the fact that that's the third moon phase model, and the moon has been getting bigger each time.
Yeah.
So the aperture for the moon is now, I think he said it's 25% larger than it is on my C9.
Right.
So the moon takes up more and more space, and they are trying to keep it to a sensible size. You know, it's 40.5 millimeters. To actually radically change the proportions, you'd probably have to go bigger. I don't know that going smaller would necessarily work with the module inside it. And it is all about that moon. The hands are effectively secondary.
Absolutely.
So that vast expanse of aventurine is the whole point of the watch.
Yeah, it's so I reviewed the moon phase. I had it a week before Windup, which was very privileged to get hold of one before Windup. And the watch, I did the review, and I wasn't expecting it to be as quite so polarizing as it is in the comments. I think that because we're blowing it, we're showing it, and we're blowing it up. Obviously, to get the full view of the dial and stuff, it makes it look in person. It's a lot more refined, and it's not as sparkly. And they've done it.
It's a lot more subtle in person.
Yeah, it's really sophisticated looking. It is a real eye catcher. I'm not the market for it. I joked in the review, and I was serious that it doesn't not having indices and stuff like that is a bit weird, but they've done an amazing job of it. They really have done an incredible job of it, and they were wearing them, and apparently they got asked the most about it when they were wearing them out and about, even though they hadn't launched it yet. So they weren't supposed to be talking about them per se, but they were showing it to a select few people, and at the party they had them on, and they were getting asked a lot about them. If you think you're going to like it, it's one of those things. If you like the design, if you think you're going to like the design, it is spectacular in person. It's just you've got to know yourself and work out whether that's the kind of design that you like. And if you think, yeah, actually that does. I like the idea of it. In person, it's amazing. There isn't if anything, I think perhaps the reviewers have done it a bit of an injustice by the fact that because we're using studio lights and stuff, it does make the dial look a lot more sparkly than I think it is in person, I will say.
Yeah, and it's an unusual watch for Christopher Ward, as it's a pure dress watch.
Sure.
It's there's no pretense about this. The moon glow is a sporty watch. The C9 that I have is sort of English formal design, and now they've gone for pure modern dress watch, which is not Christopher Ward's base. The Christopher Ward base, they are dive watches essentially.
Yeah,
you have the Bel Canto. And you've had the two Apex models, but their dress watches haven't normally been the biggest selling. They've gone through periods of time when they haven't really had a dress watch. And the last one, I think it was the 595, the hand wound. I don't think it was that successful. So Christopher Ward aren't known for dress watches. So they're asking people to give the brand, they've given their fan base, which is primarily dress watch or sporty type watches. Now you've given them something very, very different, and people's minds don't change very quickly. But it's another one of those watches that seeing it in real life will either make you love it or hate it. I don't know a clearer, easier way to see it, but photographs and so on don't do it justice.
No,
I
but I don't know whether. Sorry, Thomas. I don't know whether it's a love or hate. I know your point, Mark. I don't know if it is a love or a hate. If you like it in the photographs, it's even better in person, I will say.
Yeah.
But if you don't like the look of it in photographs, seeing it in person is probably not going to sway you. But if you like the look of it in photographs, you're going to be blown away by what it looks like in real life. That's how I would say it. But
I was just going to say that I like brands to spread their wings, and I
Yeah.
think I respect them a lot more for that, to spreading the wings, doing different types of watches. I think
Yeah.
Nathan's got a great question. Who was the most popular stand, did you think?
Um.
It was
Okay.
Friday and Saturday were so busy you couldn't tell.
Yeah, you
Right.
couldn't tell.
Really?
Yeah, I think Christopher Ward, when the doors opened, people made a beeline for Christopher Ward. They were absolutely swamped. When I first went in, everybody went that way to Christopher Ward because they wanted to see the bel canto. One of the interesting things as well that I saw, somebody was asking whether there was any crazy watches being worn, and not to make this like a Christopher Ward show, but we saw some bespoke bel cantos, and that's the first time. And I think, Mark, you already knew this, but I hadn't realized that they were doing custom dial bel cantos for Google. So Google had commissioned Christopher Ward to make. It's a brushed gold dial, and the hands are blue. The hands have been blued on it. So arguably, you could see the hands a little bit better than
It's
the
the
regular
only
bel
legible bel canto. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the joke. But it looks spectacular in person. It looks incredible. It's a shame that they can't make it a production one because it looks incredible. I mean, you're going all in on the bel canto. Then you've got a gold, like a sandblasted gold dial with blued hands, and it looked fantastic in person. It was somebody wearing it at Windup, so that was probably the watch that I was most blown away by. Watch time. Just because to flip it back to watch time for a bit, that was very hard to know who was the busiest stand because the layout of it was so weird. It was an old bank, so you've got a circle in the middle, but then an outer sort of gauntlet that you had to run, and there was brands either side of the gauntlet, and there was only room for like one or two people to filter through. And you had two sides that once you were committed, you had to go the full way round. You couldn't break off really. So watch time, you couldn't really tell who was busiest. One of the things that I found interesting about Windup and Watch Time was the only brand that was at both was G-Shock.
And
G-Shock
Oris.
and Oris. Yeah, G-Shock and Oris. I didn't. Oh yeah, you're right. G-Shock and Oris. Yeah, you're right. Because I was going to say I didn't notice them at Windup, but they were right there at the entrance. They had the best location, didn't they? They were right there at the entrance.
It was either Oris or Zodiac had the best locations because they're facing the door as you go in at Windup.
Yes.
And then Christopher Ward, as you walked in, would have been on your right. I think.
Yeah. So you're right, Oris, and then although they did have a biggish stand, didn't they? Bell and Ross had a motorbike that you mounted a watch in between the handlebars, or it had a recess to put one of the watches in to use as the clock for the motorbike, which was amazing. I think it was an electric bike, and it was funny because I don't know if I spoke to anybody in the chat here, but the most people noticed me at Watch Time, which was weird because I thought most people, because Windup are the watches that I typically review. I wouldn't typically. The watches at Watch Time were so beyond what I would ever want in terms of complexity, in terms of price, that it's hard to. I don't know, Mark, if you felt this. I struggled to get my head around like the MB&Fs and stuff, like seeing them in person. It was almost intimidating.
But just occasionally, last year there was a French brand called Royale that took me by surprise. One, because I'd never heard of them, but two, what they were making was very nice. And then this year at Watch Time, the brand that took me most by surprise was Arnold & Son.
Right.
Yeah.
Their marble, their huge moon phase with a 12 millimeter marble. It's made out of meteorite. But you expect them to look silly until you see them in real life when they make so much sense. So, the brand that kind of took me by surprise most of all out of both the shows was Arnold and Son, because I was expecting to go there and just laugh my socks off at how silly they were. And then you see them in real life and you go, oh, I actually quite like that. And I can't sell the wife for one, can I?
Yeah.
The Globetrotter in the World Time with a globe that rotates on it.
Yep.
Which was
so it's similar to this, because this looks like it has a circular part.
Yep.
Yeah, and the good thing with Watch Time is once you paid your money to go in, there wasn't any. Everybody was talking to everyone, wasn't it? It wasn't. You didn't feel like you couldn't speak to people, or that they were like snobbish or anything. It was quite the opposite. Everyone was chatting to everyone. I saw a few other YouTubers there, which was funny. But yeah, I actually the only watch I really handled at Watch Time was the collection from Norcane, but I'd reviewed a couple of their watches before, and I like what they're doing. And also the very expensive titanium G-Shocks. So the Frogman, the $6,000 Frogman, I got to handle that, and also the titanium square
And then,
that I'd always been interested in.
Who is it that does the Tonda? Is it Parmigiani Fleurier? Those were excellent.
Yeah.
And what else did I see? Parmigiani Fleurier, the Tonda, Armstrong. There's another one that the Perrellet turbine. I think I sent Sam a photograph.
They're interesting. The spinning rotors, I've forgotten what they call it. The rotor that's on the outside, but I've forgotten what you call it, that type of rotor. But they've got the spinning turbine looking rotors from planes, haven't they?
But to see them, they had one under there you go.
This one.
That sucker.
Oh,
the one above. There you go. Not the easiest watch to photograph, but when it's lit up like that, you can forgive it every other design fault it's got when it looks like that lit up.
Yeah, so Thomas, you're right. It's kind of like a turbine, isn't it? Or like an aircraft engine. What are some of these? So some of these photographs you've got. There's Nicholas. There's an awful picture of me.
Now, if you go up to the purple bel canto, if I hadn't been lucky enough to get a blue, I'd have a purple.
Yeah, really? And the salmon dial was pretty special as well.
But the purple just leaps off the stand at you.
I think the turquoise is gorgeous that they do.
Purple, because if you're going to have a watch like that, it's got to stand out.
Yeah,
and that purple stands out. The next one was Paul Swetnam from Farah.
Yep,
great brand.
And then you've got Sarah, who's their enameler. This is Anne Ordain, one of their enamelers.
Oh,
and I can't remember the gentleman's name. She was fun. She was saying, "Oh, I've been doing enameling a couple of years, and they finally qualified me." And then she said, "Oh, I thought I was good at enameling because I had one from the second batch I made. I had one that passed quality control." Then it took another year before she got another one to pass. Enameling is so hard.
Wow.
So Anne Ordain were fun. They had the Paulin watches there as well.
This
is Larco. So if it was a pleasure to see the Larco watches. They were not really a surprise, but they are
great watches.
If you like Fliegers, definitely do it. And then Abingdon and the Captain. So this is Abingdon of Abingdon Watch. She makes and design watches for women. So you'll see some quite masculine watches, but sized at 34, 36, specifically designed for for women. So said, why can't a woman wear a man's watch? Well, they're too big. Well, I like these watches, so I shall I shall design them myself and make them my size. The lady next to her is an airline captain, and I can't remember which airline she flies for. And I said to her, I go, I love your watches. I just wish you made them 42 mil. And she gave me the side eye. It's like,
Yeah.
because her watches are lovely. I just wish they made them in a size that I could wear.
You've reminded me of the earlier question, which was there any watches that I forgot who asked it. Was there any watches that impressed you? Jack Mason, in the background. So I thought Jack Mason this whole time was a fashion brand, was like on par with. I just thought it was a fashion brand, to be honest. But speaking to them there, and seeing some of the watches in person, I was actually pretty impressed. So much so that I asked them whether I could review someone. So Jack Mason is really called Peter Chow. Is the guy who runs it. But they just did a collab with Dr. Pepper. So they've got, we've got Pepsi, we've got Coke, we've got Sprite. They actually did a collab with
Dr. Pepper is evil.
Dr. Pepper. But I was very impressed. I was very impressed with them. It's another watch, another one of those where you kind of like the look of it, but I'm trying to think of a brand that I thought it was like. I just thought it was a fashion brand, to be quite honest. But I was impressed in person. So, okay, and then you've got Mike at Zodiac.
Yep, I mean Zodiac were popular. They had the Ariel Adams pineapple there, and they had constant traffic. And Mike is such a character and so nice, so pleasant to talk to. We ended up talking about making cars in the Midlands, and what a shame it had happened to Longbridge in Birmingham. Now Austin left. So Zodiac again, great watches, not necessarily for me. This is Michael Clock of Sherpa, and
in Ireland. Yeah, he was inspired by the Anycar Sherpas, wasn't he? And,
yes.
To revive them, and he said he went to Switzerland and met up with Carrie Rutelinen and went to Fortis and saw them and thought saw that Fortis only had operated with 10 people and thought, why couldn't he do it by himself? So he's brought out these Sherpa watches, which he in laser etches on the wheels on the
and that was one of the most interesting displays. They had a 10x loop over some of these laser etched balance wheels.
Sherpa mantra's he actually laser etches, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think I had a conversation with this chap along when he was first starting out. I really like the design of it. I think they're way too expensive. I think he's massively over-engineered it, in my opinion. So yeah, I think they are, because they're like $6,300 or something, one of these watches. So I think they're very expensive. I mean, I wish him well, but I love the design that much that I was almost a little bit upset or annoyed when I found out the price, and I actually challenged him on it because he wanted to come on the show and talk about it, because he basically commented on a Christopher Ward video I had about a compressor, and he was arguing that theirs actually wasn't a compressor, it was a different type of compressor. So, but anyway, yeah, wish him luck. Okay, and then we've got
that's a Young'uns.
Oh, that looks like those old. I forgot what the brand was, but there was watches like this, weren't there? That were quite cheaply made, like the. But anyway,
I think that was one of their new releases, and I don't normally associate Young'uns having a sense of humor, but somebody's been very relaxed designing this. I mean, that color pops like crazy. You can see it from across the room.
Yeah.
And I kind of admire Young'uns watches. Their Meister series are great. I just never got around to buying one, but I did like that color because I could see it from across the room. And the strap just matches the the dial perfectly. It's a great combination.
I love
Yeah,
Bullhead. Oh, they're great. Bullhead chronographs.
Yeah, it was really good. Do you know where I saw? I think it was Young Hands. I think I saw more of them in. They've got some in the Museum of Modern Art. They've got
Yes.
them on display. They actually sell. There's only a few watches that they sell in the store there, and Youngens is one of the brands that they sell in the.
Yeah, they sell some of the. They have some very
Yep.
modern quartz solar watches.
Yeah, and
that
they had
are,
Unimatic was
Yeah.
sorry, Unimatic as well was for sale.
So the MoMA range is quite narrow, but Youngens do a great job of design, and it's a brand that we don't really talk about. You don't hear a lot about Youngens, and that's a shame because they do make some very good watches.
Well, the problem for me is that they're one of those brands that they primarily go to market as watch buys, and I feel like you would be hearing a lot more about them if they had more of a
they're a
multi-channel.
German brand, so in the US, almost every German brand goes through watch buys.
Yeah, and they do it. They do a
Crappy job.
I don't think they do a great job, frankly, of advertising these watches. But anyway, that's my own opinion and not the opinions of the panel as a whole. So, and then next up, what's this one? Atlantic.
Oh, Atlantic was a brand I'd never heard of. And they are a Swiss brand. They are, the designs are quite varied. That's just one of the open heart ones. They do mechanical and quartz. They are very popular in Eastern Europe. So they claim to be the largest selling brand in Poland. They've got a big market in Romania and Croatia and so on. And I'd never heard of them. So it's nice to go to a show and see a surprise. And this was, one of my surprises. It's actually a brand I'd never heard of. And the watches are reasonably priced, well made, and it was just fun to see something I didn't recognize, and I kind of liked them. They are perhaps a little bit conventional. Okay, most watches are conventional, but they had a good selection of designs, chronographs. They had automatic, they had hand wound and quartz, and yeah, it was just a pleasure to see them. So, that was a surprise because I'd never heard of them, and they were well worth a look.
Yeah, it looks almost like that's is that their logo? Because it looks like the Masonic Lodge.
I've got no
symbol.
idea.
Yeah. Okay, and then the next one. This guy was there the whole time, wasn't he? Was he?
Yeah.
Servicing watches or regulating them or something.
This is a pair of gentlemen from Grand Central Watch, and that is a watch repair place actually in Grand Central Station. They've been around for donkey's years, have a very good reputation. So they were brought in to do bracelet resizing primarily. And I had them look at a watch and they go, oh yeah, the movement's very healthy, but they didn't regulate it very well. So they would regulate watches. I think you had to go up to Grand Central Station to get something regulated. It depends on how busy they were. But he took me through all the health of the movement. They had quite a sophisticated time grapher there. So they took me through, this is the health of the movement. So your movement's healthy, just needs regulating. Fascinating conversation. I don't know they were as busy as they were expecting to be. I didn't see them doing a lot, but they were well worth a talk to.
Yeah,
I just might not have been there at the right time.
Yeah, so that is interesting, isn't it? So I actually didn't realize that they were there. So if you bought a braceleted watch at the event, there was hey, you can get it resized.
Yeah. And it's not just somebody who's being bumped and banged by the hoi polloi, as in us. They were right next to Christopher Ward.
Yeah.
And you could take your watch there. The watchmaker's behind a table, so you're not going to scratch your bracelet. So no, they were good fun to talk to. That was a nice service that Windup offered, I think.
Yeah. So it is good, that, isn't it? I have to do a real quick shout out for some of the brands that I had met in person for the first time that I'd worked with for a long time. So Veya, Ryan over there. I've been dealing with them ever since they had their first watch, and I got to meet him for the first time in person. I got to meet Bobby Legs in person, which was cool. Mark, I got to see you for the first time. Also,
that's one
Alan over at
disappointment down the way.
Also, Alan at Zao Baltimore. I got to meet them. The team over at Laurier, I got to meet them for the first time after chatting to them for so long. Obviously, got to see the Christopher Ward. Got to see the Christopher Ward crew. I'd never met Mike in person, even though he's been on the channel multiple times, and Patrick over there, who's a really cool guy. So yeah, I managed to meet. I think that was the biggest thing for me, was meeting a lot of people in real life that I'd not spoke to before. And as I mentioned, Watch Chris introduced me to loads of brands, including Moser. He's quite good friends with Moser. Danny Reuter over at Reuter Watches, which was quite an interesting one. He's sort of a small, not really bespoke, but he's like a small batch watch company. Let me just pull up his. Did you?
Doesn't he?
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Thomas. Go on. You've heard of them before.
Where's the writer? I think Dan Reuter made a watch for Tim Mosso.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, he did. He actually made a. Where are we now? I've got it up here somewhere. There's that Jack Mason there, Dr. Pepper. Let me find. Oh, I must have gone off it. But yeah. So I actually got to meet Danny Reuter, who's named after the watch. They're sort of small batch production watches using Value 7750 in there. They're on the upper end. They're sort of around the $9,000 mark. But yeah, it's really cool to kind of meet him in person. Somebody who had a passion for watches and just started making them and hand assembling. I think he does them in Brooklyn, so very New York centric. I also got to see Fortis, the new Novanaut, which this was very interesting because they've got a new CEO or president. They've got new owners, and what they've done is, I guess, as a kind of a symbol of solidarity, they've actually removed any reference of the previous reason that this watch was famous. So they only say in the marketing that it's been to the International Space Station. They don't make any specific references anymore, and they've obviously changed the name to this watch as well. But they've also used a movement. I'll ask you this, Mark. I was surprised at the amount of, I don't know if it says it here, but the amount of micro brands that are moving away from ETA and Solita and started to use. Is it
Soprod?
Soprod is one. There's another one begins with an L.
Yeah, Laurent Perrier or Laurent
Perret.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, so this is using a Le Jeu Perret movement, and I forget which the other brand was, but I heard that name at least 3 or 4 times there, which was quite interesting.
You also see brands using Longeron. Le Jeu Perret are owned by Citizen now.
Oh, is that right?
And in fact, if you Miyota had a stand at Windup, so they were taking watches apart.
And STP did as well, didn't they? STP had I wonder if it's actually going to say. I think they've said that it's. I think they're saying it's in-house, or they're kind of alluding to it, but it is a Le Jeu Perrier movement that they've had, a chronograph movement that Fortis have had made for this watch. It's a shame because it's not a shame. It's a great watch, but they used to be. Do you remember this, Thomas? They used to be like 2,500 with the 7750 in, but they're now up at the over 5,000 mark.
Yeah, that's the is that the Cosmonautis, that one?
What was previously, the
watch formerly known as,
yeah.
Yes, nice watch.
Yeah, they've done a really good job of that. It was funny because they had this was actually one of the most interesting conversations I had, because the president, I forget the name of the president, I've got his card somewhere. I need to follow up with everyone that gave me business cards, but I spoke to the chap that he had helping him was not somebody that worked for Fortis. He was an actor. So it looked like, I think Windup had hired some outside talent to do it, and I'm thinking they should have asked YouTubers to do it. Do you know, like I could have waxed lyrical about Fortis, but this actor was really, really good. And actually, the conversation I had with him was about the actors' strike, and we must have spoke to him for 10, 15 minutes about it. So it was really interesting to get a view on the US actors' strike from an actual actor, and he could do that because it was like a promotion. It wasn't promoting a film or anything. He could actually do the sort of this standing at a watch event.
To spend more time in space than the Speedmaster, hasn't it? It's
Yes, yeah, it has. Yeah, this was actually standard issue.
To the people at the International Space Station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think both the US I think the US wore it as well, but so I don't think they've let's just see, it's I think they've took out they've took any reference out to its previous
Right.
namesake, but yeah, I really like this. I probably would, I don't know. It's in like a weird price bracket for me, but I think it's probably worth it. But yeah, I don't know. But it seems very similar to the previous one as well. Cool. Well, that was our hour. That was a really cool. Thank you everyone for all of the questions and everything. Any last? Did I miss anything, Mark?
I'll just point out to William, whose was Formex there with the bezel that can be switched out. Earlier in the stream we talked about it, so you'll probably have to hunt for it in the playback.
Yeah, William. It was right at the start. I think you joined. I think you perhaps joined like 15 minutes in. You probably joined at the tail end of the conversation, to be quite honest. But yeah, it was really cool. The reef. It was really, really good.
I know you mentioned previously, but were you too scared of approaching the big brands like Vini Halter or Carrie Vistalainen or Watch Time, or were you interested?
Right. So this is a good question. So I'm not normally shy about going up to brands and talking to them, but it was so chaotic in there. Plus, I had like my wife, Helen, my wife was with me. Helen was with me, so it was, and I didn't mind it. It wasn't like a burden having her there, but I was also quite conscious that because it was such a tight run, there was watch stands on one side and there was two. If you stood talking to anyone for a long time, you were getting jostled quite. I don't know if you found this, Mark. It was quite hard to kind of step out and talk to people because there was just so much going on at watch time. I actually think even though the venue looks impressive, it's actually a pretty poor venue. Also, the ceiling was leaking as well. So
I got dripped on at Parmisier Fleury. So I sit there and go, I'd love to look at these, but I'm getting dripped on inside, so I'm moving.
It was a spectacular venue, but it's a poor choice for a watch event, I think. The wind up one was better. I don't think there was perhaps. I don't know what the ideal would be for it.
Well, this was wind up second year at the Altman building, and they've outgrown it already. So I just don't know how many big spaces there are. Yeah. So yes, yeah, it's a fun weekend, but if you go there 3 days like I did, you do a lot of walking, your feet hurt. If you're going, I would say if you can go on the Sunday. It's far more relaxed.
Yeah,
you get,
well, that's what we did.
Much more time.
We made sure we did. It was like we perhaps did 2 or 3 hours on at watch time, and then we went off and did all the New York stuff, and then the same time, at wind up on the Friday, and then watch time we did the same thing. We did a couple of loops round. I got chatting to a bunch of people who watch the channel, so really nice to meet everyone. Thanks for saying hi. And then but we only did a couple of hours there, and then I think the same on the Sunday. I think the Sunday we only did a couple of hours, didn't we? Because we went for lunch, didn't we, Mark? At like 12.
And,
so
sort of I got you in early anyway. So
yes. Yeah.
What's power with the doorman? But you've got 50,000 followers. You're famous, so of course they're going to let you in.
Wind up. Heinrich watches.
I didn't notice them.
No, 'cause I know Bobby Legs bought one of those, a rebuy. So congratulations to you, Bobby, for buying one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby was so cool. I wish I could have spent more time with him, but he was on quite a tight time frame himself. Dib was there as well. I wish I could have spent a bit more time with him. Actually, he's such a nice guy, Bobby. Okay, well, we'll wrap this up. So I'll end the stream here. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on Sunday for the Sunday Social.
Take care.